Hello, everyone. It's Stacey Mourier from Estate Connection Law Office. I am meeting with Antoine Rempp of Executor Experts. I've done a bunch of events in the Edmonton area with Antoine. They've been really well received. He brings in together a whole bunch of different experts, from the funeral industry, lawyers, accountants. What else do you bring in there, Antoine?
Auctioneers, funeral directors, lawyers, accountants, auctioneers.
Yeah.
Like move coordinators or different disciplines that would be involved with dealing with an estate.
Yeah, and they've been really well attended. But one of the things Antoine kind of brought to my attention was that there is a product out there called Executor Insurance, and it's a product that's relatively new to Canada, I believe. And I think it's really important, especially because of the amount of estate litigation we're seeing. So, Antoine, maybe I know what Executor Insurance is, but maybe tell everyone else out there what it is.
So as the executor, you have a responsibility to handle the estate and to do it right. And it's a difficult task for lawyers. So definitely for people who are not necessarily in this industry, you can make mistakes. You can take too long to sell a house, and then you could be liable personally to pay back the beneficiaries for that. So the executor insurance allows you to get some coverage to make sure that you're not going to have to pay out of your own pocket to cover these expenses.
Yeah, and I can tell you, I was just telling Antoine, I have an estate right now where I actually ended up being appointed the executor, but the gentleman has decided he doesn't want to leave the house, and he's now selling it piecemeal on Kijiji. So, selling the screen door and selling the mailbox, bit by bit, he's going to make his money out of the estate. And so we're in litigation and, trying to get them out of the house. So it does happen, even on estates where you don't think the house is worth a lot of money. I guess, I know executors can get themselves into trouble. Do you have any examples of situations that you've heard about where people have used insurance and it's gotten them out of trouble or helped them out?
Well, a big one is when people try to get through probate themselves. They think they're going to save $1 by not working with a lawyer. So it takes them 3 months to just get started or more. I've had one person contacting me after one of the seminars, and it's been a year and she hasn't started probate yet. So that's going to be trouble. And if you waited to sell the house until you have probate, and now you waited a year or 6 months, and now the market tanked, the beneficiaries could come after you and say you took too long to sell it, so now you have to pay the difference of what you could have got for the house 6 months ago. Definitely. And now it's out of your own pocket that you might have to pay those beneficiaries the amount of money that the market could afford the house, and the executor insurance would cover that bill, and also legal fees. Definitely. Up to a certain amount.
Yeah. I don't know if I told you, but we recently had an estate where the gentleman had died 28 years ago, and they hadn't applied and got probate yet. And you can imagine it was quite a nightmare. He had appointed his son to be executor. The son died, and because there was no second alternate in the will, it was actually the son's wife, so his daughter-in-law, who was the executor, who didn't do much with the estate because she's grieving and so on. Yeah. And the siblings were all at war. So, in an estate like that, there's huge costs. We have taxes that are outstanding and legal fees and stuff. So it does happen.
So if you have blended families, and that's more and more common, if you have blended families and you know that the second spouse and the first set of kids are not necessarily getting along, you can expect there's going to be some litigation. And the last thing you want to do, if you're the glue that combines the spouse and the different sets of kids, you want to know that these guys are not going to end up fighting and spending all the estate money just paying legal fees or just dragging the executor through the mud. So, and depending on when you have your will done, the amount of coverage that you would receive for the executor insurance changes.
Gotcha.
So what you want to do is you want your will to be at least no more than 5 years old. And then you would get 250 grand of coverage for personal liability or legal fees. If your will is more than 5 years old, then it drops to 100 grand.
Gotcha.
So you want to make sure that, and you should anyway, sit down with your lawyer every 5 years at least, because life changes, a lot of things happen. So you want to keep your will up to date, and then you get the most out of the executor insurance.
Gotcha. So what would be the process to obtain executor's insurance?
So you can get it either before someone dies or you can get it after. So if you get it after, when the person dies, usually in the will it would be written, I authorize my executor to purchase the insurance. Then they would have to use the estate money to buy for the coverage, and they would also have to show the beneficiaries that they're gonna take money out of the estate to get the coverage. So that's good and bad, because now you have to deal with the estate. If you do it beforehand, long before the person passes, then you can take that money, pay for the coverage, and when the time comes, you just make a phone call and say, hey, listen, my dad had Executor Insurance. I just want to get this going, and they're going to put it in place, and the beneficiaries won't even know that that coverage was paid before the person died. So it's a much easier conversation. And the other interesting thing about doing it beforehand is that the executor can get paid tax-free.
Yeah.
That's a big benefit, because
very much so.
If you're an executor and you're going to deal with the estate for the next 2 years, and at some point you decide you want to get paid because you're going to do a lot of work for that. Now, if that money comes as the estate, you have to go through filings in the taxes. So you might have to deal with an accountant for a very small amount, and then you're going to pay tax on that money.
Yeah.
If it's set up beforehand, then it's treated as a death benefit, so you get paid tax-free. Wow. You don't have to worry about filing anything, and it's so much easier.
That is huge. I know in my office, a lot of times when we're writing wills, I'll talk about executors' compensation, and people always ask me, well, is it taxable? And when they find out it's taxable, they're like, oh, I'll just give it to them as a beneficiary then. Unfortunately, sometimes the siblings don't decide or don't agree to give them a little more compensation for their time. So it saves that friction. And for those of you that have been to Estate Connection Law Office, you know we're all about leaving a legacy of love. And I think this is really important. The person who steps up to be your executor has a ton of responsibility on their shoulders. So this protects them from knowing that they won't have to do anything. If somebody does bring a lawsuit against the estate, their legal fees are covered. As well, it gives them compensation tax-free. And I mean, if you can pay tax on money or take it tax-free, who would want to pay tax? And
the amount that you can get is up to 50 grand. So you would have to pay for the coverage itself. So depending on the size of your estate, it would be between $4,000 and $15,000. Yeah. $15,000 is for an estate $5 million and more, so that's a big estate. Yeah. If you have less than $1 million, it's $4,000. Between $1 and $2 million estate, it's $6,000. Yeah. That's for your liability coverage, and after that, you can top it up with executor comp. Yeah. So you could add another 15 grand or 20 grand to be paid to your executor, and that's going to become tax-free in the hands of the executor after the person dies.
That's incredible. I know, state litigation is more and more prevalent. We had one where the litigation fees got up to $300,000 and ate up a good portion of the estate. Yeah. And even though, we are making money at it, it doesn't really leave us with a happy feeling when we do end up doing that. So I want to thank Antoine for joining us today. Sure. I wanted to get this information out there. If you have any questions or concerns about Executors Insurance, please call Estate Connection. Or you can check out Antoine's new website there on Executor Experts. What's the actual web address? .ca. Yeah, the tons of good information. And you'll also see when they're coming back to Edmonton to do seminars. So thank you so much. Take care, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.